What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to this Scale News Update. It's good to be home. If you're not familiar with the show, this is where we talk about the news topics that happened in the scale world of RC over the past week. If you enjoy the Scale News Update, normally hit the like button. Let's jump into this week's topics. It's gonna be a week. First for this week, FMS has got a new 1/10 scale rig coming out, and this is called the FCX10. Now, they had this on display at the NERSA show, which I was at last week, and I did a little walk around tour showing what was on display there, and I went a little bit into this truck, but I got a chance to really sit there, stare at it, flip it over, look around, and I didn't really have to stare at it that long because it's pretty much a TRX4. They definitely took some heavy inspiration from the TRAXXAS rig for them to develop this FCX10. Just with, yes, it has things like the TRAXXAS has with like locking and unlocking differentials, a 2-speed. I believe that this one also has a 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive setup, and possibly dig. Can't remember exactly how they had that all laid out 100%, but a lot of the other heavy influence comes from just things like the shape of the frame rails, the kind of oddly unique TRX4 slider, base, and the whole platform there, the motor position, the transmission configuration, just the battery tray, so many things, even like the shock towers. They are TRAXXAS, and even the diff cover is almost the exact same shape as a TRX4. I have no idea why they wouldn't have just changed up the shape a little bit to not be such a blatant copy of it. But I guess they've done it before with the Jeep stuff, although they got yelled at for that one. So you figured maybe they would change their ways. But we'll see. This thing, that's going to come with a 79 Blazer body, and the Blazer body is well detailed. It's got hard molded plastic details on the grille. The rear of the body has got a hard molded shell on it. The body itself is Lexan, but the rear cap is hard molded plastic. Underneath of that, you'll have the rest of the bed, so you can run it without that. And then there's a roll cage that's inside of there. The bed, or the body itself, has got a light kit throughout. And one nice thing is that they are using the magnetic style connection mounts, which we've seen people use in the aftermarket to connect, the body to the chassis without having to like plug in things. So they've decided to go with that. It's got a light controller that sits on the body itself, and then it, gets power through that magnetic system in the back of the body. The body itself is extremely heavy. I bet the body is close to 2 pounds. I can't imagine that this thing will be a wild performer or even like on the level of a TRX4 just with how heavy that body is. If you take that body off, I imagine it could be much better in the performance area. It's servo on axle rather than chassis mounted servo. The servo kind of sits in there and tucks up into the chassis. If you look close, you can definitely see it's not chassis mounted, but it doesn't take away from the scale looks wildly. It does have the locking unlocking differentials, and it works a little bit different than the TRAXXAS style. It's got a lever that's on the outside of the axle and actually exposed, but they've got this like skid plate that is there to kind of guard it, although it definitely looks like it's going to become a hang point specifically on the rear axle, just because of the way that the rocks or terrain will be traveling. A little bit different there. The skid plate, probably not 100% needed. You could take it off there and probably not run into too much issue. Price-wise, I think that they said it's going to be in the upper 400 range, kind of under that 500 mark. So it is going to be a little bit cheaper than the TRAXXAS options, but not a wildly amount different. So deciding to go with this versus a TRX4, which obviously has a huge aftermarket, the bodies are still very nice, is going to be an interesting call. I feel like they should have made this a little bit different than a TRX4 and everywhere else if they were going to try and kind of go head to head. I don't know. An interesting choice. It'd be interesting to hear what you guys think. Would you buy an FMS that looks really, really close to a TRX4 rather than just buying the TRX4, like the proven platform with all the aftermarket? Or why would you? Would it just be to save $40? It'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on that, which way you would decide to go. The FCX10, not available for pre-order yet. I believe I heard that it's going to be a November release. Also new from FMS was the Lemur. This is a like 124 scale caged buggy with the portal axles, all that. A pretty cool look. I like those, you know, higher performance looking small scale trucks. I think this fits right in with that. The drivetrain that sits underneath is exactly what you're used to seeing from FMS at this point, I believe. I don't think that there was any new updates there. It's just really that cage buggy styling on the outside. Styling isn't, you know, wild or crazy outside of the box, anything like that. Just a pretty typical boxy tube buggy. So not going to be for everybody, but I thought it looked pretty decent. These little FMS Lemurs are available for pre-order already. Put a link to where you can find those in the description below. And if you have an FMS 18 or 24 and you want to make the performance immediately worse, check out these new parts from BATRAZZI? I don't know. It's a track set for the 18 or 24 FCX. What, you know, they're exactly what they say. They're tracks, which are worse than tires in every way. So again, if you hate performance, check these out. Mon-Tech wanted to get on the Power Wagon train, and they released this body called the D Power. The power of D. And I'm positive that Mon-Tech is a foreign company. I'm not 100% sure what continent they reside on. I think it's Europe, but D Power, I feel like was a miss. I get where they were going from the Dodge Power Wagon. Let's just go with D Power. The body itself also, it is a 110 scale. It doesn't look like it. The proportions of this thing are very odd. It's got this very forward cab style with an extremely long bed. It's all one piece, so you're not going to do the cab and, you know, cab only type option, but it's just such a weird proportion. I don't think they're going to capture their portion of the Power Wagon sales that they were really hoping to with the D Power. I think it's a bit of a miss. Maybe it's just me. Maybe you will prefer the D Power more than the standard Power Wagon or the Power Why do all these things get terrible names? The Power Master. We all thought J Concepts owned the bad name, just title, but I feel like Mon-Tech with the D Power may have taken that title from them. So I don't know. The other thing is that as of the last I checked, Mon-Tech's website is down. They just released this. I've checked it 3 times today and they continue to be down. It's mon-techracing.net. which the dash is always weird. I did check, and montechracing.net with no dash is available for purchase if you would like to get that URL. Get you some D Power. And new from WPL is this little guy. This is the WL01, and this is a little collaboration with WPL. This is a new version of the D12, basically, a new body option for it, but it's got opening doors, and the bed has got the lay-down sides. Kind of cool all the way around. I like this little thing. They also had like a new D22 and a 42, which has got like their updated electronics, things like that. The outside of it looks pretty much the same. I think it's got a licensed version of the body. It's just very similar in general, but just some updates to their typical stuff. So if you're a fan of the little Ds, then check out any of the new line that WPL has. Continuing the Breast Cancer Awareness Month sales, Vanquish released the F10T axles finally. That now joins the 1.9 impacts and the 2.2 tank wheels. So those are all available now. And again, those are being released throughout the month in batches. So they're not just the one drop like they were previously, trying to get more and more available. So if you'd like to purchase those in support of Breast Cancer Awareness Month, you can check out the link in the description below to see all of the parts that are available. OT6 has a new Voodoo KLR V2 coming out. This is similar to the previous KLR, but this one is narrower. So just an update to the design. The tread pattern looks very similar, and I believe that the height is the same. It's just a new narrower tread width. These aren't available yet, and when they are, I'm not sure if they're going to be under the pre-order style or how exactly you're going to see the rollout of that. Can often be a very odd situation with the OT6 products. Sometimes they make it to dealers and distributors. Oftentimes they don't. So you'll just have to watch and see how that goes if you're interested in picking up a set of those new tires. Also new at NERSA was a new version of the HPI Venture, and I believe that this one is going to be called the Wayfinder. I spotted it while I was passing by the HRP booth, and they had this on display there. Underneath, it looks pretty much just like you have seen the HPI Venture, or maybe you haven't seen it. If you remember at all the HPI Venture, it was something that was supposed to come out in 2015, before the SCX2 was an option at all even. And it was supposed to come out, it was almost going to, and HPI was going through all kinds of crazy troubles and went under, then kind of got propped back up for a minute with a new owner. The Venture was finally released, I think maybe around 2016 or 17, but turned out to be a pretty limited supply. Then HPI went under again and then came back for a third time. And they're just finally kind of trying, but it sounds like they needed to change up the body because they weren't able to sell under the Toyota name anymore. So now we see this new, unlicensed, differently styled body called the Wayfinder. The Venture does appear to have aluminum links and CVD axles compared to the plastic links and dog bones that it originally came out with. So some updates have been made. The Venture was a truck that, when originally placed in the market around 2015, could have been a really solid option. At this point, it's getting pretty dated and may not 100% stack up. It will really be interesting to see what the price is of the Wayfinder version when it hits the market. If any of you own a Venture, I'd be interested to hear how many of you picked one up over the years, whether it was the original with the Toyota body or if you maybe picked one up and the small number of the builder's kits that got put out before those went away as well. Love to hear how many of you still have one, or maybe had one at least in the past. Also new this week, Heut Tech, something like that, I'm guessing, has a 1/24 scale Tank 300 Pro. Now, I don't know Heut Tech, but I do know the Tank 300. That's a full-size SUV available overseas, like in China. And there's been a 1/8 scale version of this made by Traction Hobbies, I believe. But the full scale is an IFS and solid axle rear. This little 1/24 scale is also, it's got an IFS front end and a nice little solid axle rear. Scaled pretty well even. Nice forward mounted, low motor with all the electronics that sit up under the hood. The body looks to be very well detailed. All the opening, features on the body all over. Rear suspension linked, nice shocks in there. Pretty interested to see. 1/24's IFS, not going to be the best performer off-road in many instances, but in 1/24 scale, it's almost like a cool little novelty. So I figured this would be a cool one to take a look at. I haven't found good information on this or where it will be available yet. I'm not familiar with this brand. Not sure if we'll see it available over here under like a different brand name or what. So I'll keep an eye out, see if it pops up on the open market somewhere where we can get it in the US, but if you're interested in finding something for, maybe an interesting little build platform, pre-runner or something like that, body swap, who knows, this could be a cool one to track down, put in the effort to get it over here. Wednesday, the budget build is back. Matt and I are doing the Fordyce budget build off. Currently, we took 1 week off as I was traveling, but I'm back now, ready to get back in the swing of things, and this will be our first week back for the last 4 episodes of that series. And we'll be spinning the wheel again this Wednesday on Livestream Takeover to determine what our budget is for the following week. So the wheel has really introduced a new level of anxiety for me to determine what the budget is of this. It all started so simply, and we've decided to complicate it and just make my blood pressure even higher. So good times. Really looking forward to the last 4 weeks of this, seeing where we can get these trucks to. And speaking of Wednesdays, don't forget Livestream Takeover every Wednesday. I'm back at home now. I'm in my safe space. looking forward to joining Matt again in my normal studio where I'm, I've got everything and it looks the way that I'm used to. Come join us, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. And lastly, Friday Night Live. So I've been off for a handful of weeks for Friday Night Live, and I'm gonna have to say that Friday Night Live is likely going to stop being a regular show for me. I'm only gonna do it when I have like a special week, whether it's a new release, something I'm gonna show off, or like a special night, like a Flex Seal night. The return from live streams has fallen off, and the fact that I'm doing videos on Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night meant that I only had Thursday off before my weekend. So the decision to axe Friday Night Live, except for special occasions, had to be made. However, this Friday is going to be a special occasion. So Friday Night Live will be back this week for who knows how many times before the end of the year. Could be the last one until the end of the year. Who knows? We shall see. But come check out this Friday Night Live. It will be a good one. Looking forward to it. But with that, that's going to do it for this week's stories. I asked you guys a lot of questions during this stream. Are you interested in the FCX10? Why would you buy it versus buying a TRX4? Is D-Power a worse name than Power Master? Maybe one of you wants to own a URL very similar to a different one that's available. Did you ever own a Venture? Drop your comments below. I'm glad to be back home. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the show. Subscribe if you're not already. Hit the notification bell so you see the videos as soon as they get uploaded. I'm trying to remember how I did the show. It just feels like it's been so long. With that, as always, thanks again for watching the Scale News Update. See you on the next one.